Hello students, welcome to week 4 for Journal 349. This is Dr. Romo and I am excited to bring to you some very relevant and interesting information related to the visual side of editing. When you look at our agenda this week, you can see we are reading chapters 9 and 10. We're watching a video about photos and the use of them within journalism. We have 3 things we're working on this week. We are working on discussion board number 4, which is due on Friday, with reply posts due on Sunday. Style and editing quiz number 3, which is due Sunday, as well as the critical assignment rationale, which is due Sunday. The critical assignment rationale really serves as a little of our midterm check to see where we're at. We should be working on our critical assignment throughout the weeks, as it does take a significant amount of time to complete. You'll see that by the end of this week, we should complete 3 things. We should explore how to write headlines, captions, and blurbs. We should examine the ethical constraints of using photos and media at writing and pieces, as well as express the value of editing process for PR practitioners. We're working on course objectives 3.1 and 3.2, and if you have any questions, let me know. In addition, please keep in mind that we are completing style and editing quiz number 3 this week. This is the same style as we've been doing for the past 2 quizzes. You have 3 opportunities to, you have 3 opportunities to complete the quiz. They are not timed, and there are 5 questions worth 6 points each. It's an open book, and the highest score is recorded in Blackboard. If you have any questions with that, let me know. This week we are spending some time looking at the NPPA, which is the National Press Photographers Association Code of Ethics within the learning module. You will write a 400-word discussion board post on it. So in the module, read it. It's embedded into the course. It also has a hyperlink to the actual website if you want to look at that. Explain what the premise of this Code of Ethics is, how it relates to journalism, and why it may be important to copy editors. Provide your personal perspectives on the use of using controversial photos and stories, as well as what it tells us to do, and explain the role Christians have in ethical decision making when it comes to using photos and print. So we're starting to talk about the ethical decisions we have to make as editors to run certain photos or not within this discussion board. So it's very, very important. This week you are submitting your critical assignment rationale. You'll see the first part of this slide tells us what is due in week 7. So remember, we are creating our own style guide. That means to develop and practice our editing skills, we will create this style guide using actual entries from the AP Style book. So you're going to create your own style guide using 5 topics under each letter of the AP Style manual. So that's very important to keep in mind. This week, that is due the entire thing in week 7. This week, I would like you to submit your rationale for this assignment. This is where you're going to share what you have completed so far, meaning what you plan to cover, some of the topics you have covered already, and at least 2 sample entries you plan to include in your final draft. The rationale will have specific details as to why you are covering the topics you have chosen to cover, as well as a rationale for the entire project. You can also at this point submit everything you have completed so far. So if you're already halfway done, great. Turn that in and provide a 200-word rationale telling me what you've done. That's really what it is. It's a midterm point check to show what you have completed so far in this assignment. Moving on, it's important to know what we do with headlines, captions, and blurbs, and what their purposes are to editors. Remember, our primary goal as an editor is to get people to read. An axiom of the media industry is that to persuade people to read newspapers, magazines, listen to the radio, watch television, surf the web, by getting their attention. Radio accomplishes this with sound. It does use editors to edit the copy that they read on the air, while television provides a compelling combination of sounds and pictures. However, print media and the internet rely primarily on still photographs and large type to accomplish what radio and television do by sound and sight. Although video is increasingly popular and used frequently, the internet and print media still heavily rely on still photos and large graphics. It's really important to know that there are some things that an editor's first task should be is obviously to correct and refine the copy. However, The second task is to write a headline that attracts the reader's attention, summarizes the story, depicts the mood of the story, helps the reader index the contents of the page, helps set the tone for newspaper, magazine, or websites, and provides adequate relief from reading so much type. Really, the functions are important, but none is more important than capturing the reader's attention within headlines, captions, and blurbs. The average reader does not want to read the average story. Even though that's a depressing thought, one most editors do not want to hear or believe, but really it's true. Take newspapers, for example. The average reader reads the paper for only about 30 minutes a day, according to a 2010 study. That's more than 15 minutes Walter Lippmann estimated readers spent with the paper each day in the early 20th century. That 30 minutes, though, is not always spent reading the news, not by a long shot. From that time, we should subtract the minutes spent looking at the classifieds, advertisements, as well as TV listings, horoscopes, comics, as well as various columns and activities in the paper. Most people are likely to read a story in its entirety for finding fault within it, and they are attracted to that by the headline, caption, or blurb. So after you've written a headline, forget what you know about the story is long enough to read the headline and ask yourself whether you have a clear idea of the news from reading just the headline. If the answer is that you don't, then your headline needs to be rewritten, or the page designer should redesign the story space to include a longer headline, a second deck, blurb, or something other than a display type device. Every bit of big type on a page is another chance to give an additional news they might not otherwise read. So it's very important to keep in mind about the purpose of headlines and captions. When we look at photographs, type, and graphics, it's important to really keep in mind that we really live in a world in which visual stimulation is important in attracting and holding the attention of many media consumers in all aspects of media. In today's world, it's almost unthinkable to ignore the power of design and without the impact of video, photos, and graphics. However, so many reporters end up being focused on what is written or spoken, they fail to think of what the visual aspect of their piece should be. Specifically, about 90% of readers enter pages through large photos, artworks, and display. They're attracted to that first prior to reading the actual headline. Running a visual element with text makes it 3 times more likely that somebody will actually read the entire piece. Headlines are more likely to be read when there's a photo by it, as well as the bigger the photo, the more likely you're going to attract attention to your story. So when we're looking at this, photographers and information graphics are markedly increased by both comprehension of text and interested story. Graphics and photographs, as well as headlines, get far more attention from readers than texts do. It's important that you utilize sidebars frequently in your story. If a story seems too long and moves in a fashion that can be broken into many different subsections, use sidebars on the side of the story to help persuade the reader to continue reading in different aspects of it. When you get into this a little further, make sure you know that people will be attracted to stories with photos and graphics, so keep visual possibilities of each story in mind when you are creating, reporting, and interviewing for that story. Always lead with what will this story look like as opposed to what it will be in terms of the content you're providing. It's important to use subheaders to break up the story and to attract people to the story, especially long stories with other graphic elements and photos. That's just a little snapshot of what we are working on this week. Remember, we are reading chapters 9 and 10. We're watching a video related to photojournalism, as well as completing discussion board number 4 on Friday with reply post due on Sunday, style and editing quiz number 3 on Sunday, as well as our critical assignment rationale. If you have any questions or concerns, please reach out. I look forward to interacting with you and pray you all have a blessed week.